Hello world of YouTube and welcome to List Week 2022, where I'm going to be breaking down my favorites mostly, with one video breaking down my least favorites of a thing that I indulged in over the last year. We're starting with my top 11 favorite games that I played last year today, before going into best singles, then going into worst albums, before capping off and finishing with my favorite albums of the year. Now, as far as gaming in 2022 goes, there was a lot of good shit that came out. You know, some stuff that was lingering, that was in development hell last year, finally came out this year. And even in that instance, as always, there's a lot of shit that I didn't play. I didn't play Horizon Forbidden West as much as I liked Zero Dawn, mostly because other bigger games came out and took up a big chunk of my time. For as much praise as Sonic Frontiers has gotten from its fan base, there are some aspects of the fan base that I've talked to that didn't like it for very specific reasons that steered me away from it at the time. I'll probably end up playing it eventually. As much as I've been trying to get back into multiplayer gaming, Overwatch 2 stayed on the shelf for very specific reasons. And God of War Ragnarok wasn't even on my radar because I haven't played a God of War game, in spite of owning a handful of them. But I'll try to rectify that someday as well. Either way, with those big missed ones out of the way, let's get into the list. Give it a like if you're excited, and let's dive on in. Look, I'm going to start this list off by saying I'm not perfect. I'm only human. I make mistakes. Like when I said a few years back we don't need any more beat-em-ups.
I feel like we hit this nice stride earlier in the decade with beat-em-ups, with games like Castle Crashers, Scott Pilgrim, and Double Dragon Neon being fantastic. We haven't had a whole lot of new fun shit come out of the genre.
At the time, I had no idea we'd be getting a game like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, a lovely expansion on a tried-and-true formula that was a romp to go through. The combo game is insanely satisfying. The art style is well utilized. The soundtrack is aces, something you'll see me showcase in other corners of the internet this week, and the story itself is solid enough. It felt like a variety hour to the scales you'd expect in the series, but it didn't disappoint. You fight a lot of the regular suspects, but it feels like the maximum experience you could expect with these characters. Even though I haven't cracked it back open like I thought I would have after beating it, I'm still craving a different environment to start it up again. You know, with some friends, and maybe tear through it in another sitting. It's that kind of game. It's when you bust out in a social setting where it feels apt to do so. And it was still a lot of fun. You guys want to know something wacky? This year's justification for the January video release date doesn't come to us from Yacht Club Games. Nor does it come from a late in the year release, actually. It comes from an unexpected place. It comes from turning 30. I haven't played a Gran Turismo game since I lived in the Pacific Northwest on a PS1, yet because I dedicated so much of my year to racing games already, my curiosity got piqued enough to put Gran Turismo 7 on my wish list. I got it as a gift over the holidays.
Thanks, Mom.
Then proceeded to fly through a large chunk of the game over the course of a week like I'm training to be an extra in the next Fast and Furious movie.
Too fast, too furious. I'm too fast for y'all, man.
Gran Turismo 7 has been a delight to play through. The best comparison I can give it is like spinning a new Meshuggah record. You more than likely know what you're going to get, and in the case of Gran Turismo 7, you get nothing. The approach to the gameplay loop isn't what I expected it to be, and that's what really kept me coming back, oddly enough. It's also a game that made me realize how badly I need to upgrade my console, because it looked great, but there was certainly an uncanny valley scenario when watching my replays. It's car porn for sure still, right down to its hilarious anime opening. But it's gorgeous car porn to boot. Because nothing says 30s like car porn, right? For those who don't know, I got a cat last year, which was kind of a big decision for me to make. It felt like the right time though, and it's one that I'm happy that we made. And I think that feeling was partially due to the fact that Rachel and I played through Stray together around the time that it came out. I mean, look at this boy. Kinda makes sense, right? While shorter than I thought it would be, Stray is a lovely looking adventure in a world that feels lived in, with its portrayal of this dystopian future through a POV that just feels so well articulated. This is one graceful little cat, and it was a lot of fun to essentially play as close to a cat as I could, being an absolute menace to these robots while trying to find my way back to a higher place.
It was a game that hit a lot of nice strides that kept me invested with a progression that was just satisfying to continue through, while also planting a little seed in my brain that maybe I was ready to take a plunge into a decision that I would needed to make. Like I said up at the top, I tried to get more into multiplayer games this year. Not just battle royales, but trying to recapture that feeling of hopping in a match with randos and seeing what we can do together. While I did play a handful of multiplayer games from this year, the only one ending up on this list is Splatoon 3. Partially because the full package warrants placement alone. Hell, as of recording this, I still haven't touched the campaign. The multiplayer modes, though, in this are insanely fun, and you can see how Nintendo is continuing to fine-tune an already great foundation here. The atmosphere is top-notch, the soundtrack is just excellent, the variety of weapons is insane, and the quick matches lend to a great turnaround that kept me invested. It's a game whose updates kept it fresh for me too, along with seemingly ironing out some of the bad early release kinks. Between Splatfest, the rotating maps, and Salmon Run, this game is already so engaging in long sessions, it's exciting to think about the horizons I still have ahead of me. Alright, let's cut the shit. You guys know he's going to be on here, roll him on in. There they are, yeah, you could have guessed Shovel Knight Dig was going to end up on this list, right? And I'm putting it in the 7th spot. Dig continues the expansion of the Shovel Knight world prior to the main game's events, while also being the best roguelike I played all year. Admittedly, I didn't play many, comparatively to the last few years, but similarly to Pocket Dungeon from last year, the quick turnaround nature of runs within this game kept pushing me to hit that play button one more time. The small streamlined tweaks made to integrate his combat and movement helped keep Shovel Knight moving down, which given his weapon of choice just feels right, you know? The soundtrack gives this incredible shift to the sonic palette I'm used to with this series, and it fits the graphical change as well. The surprises, secrets, and twists you find along the way add to and give each world their own flavors of variety that feel in the same spirit of the games too, while keeping each run you make spicy. Yacht Club just knows who to trust with this IP, and I'm glad this game keeps the spirit of this character and world thriving in glorious splendor. Shortly after I got my Switch, I discovered one of the biggest gems of the 2010s in the first Mario & Rabbids game, Kingdom Battle. It's such an insane concept that sticks the landing tenfold. With its sequel, Spark of Hope, I'm loving a lot of the expansions on gameplay the most. The removal of movement confined to a grid, the addition of sparks that add a nice customizability to your arsenal, especially given a shift made to your weapons from the first game that does the opposite, and the fact that I cannot choose Mario are all choice ideas. This game feels a sizable bit larger than the original too, with some fun side quests that give me more to switch up and play around with, along with giving these worlds you visit more personality all their own. It's shocking to me that this game is already seeing a price cut because it's just as rewarding to excel in, with some genuinely fun puzzles to figure out in the mix. Even if my biggest personal gripe with the game is the lack of an equal marriage between worlds, I do enjoy some of the original characters in here to give this universe a personality tangential to the one I got used to. It's just a shift in soul that wasn't quite what I was expecting at the end of the day. It's still a great game though, and I was happy to see this come together so well. One of my favorite things to do is look through the shops online and see what games are on sale. Of course you find some trash core, but every now and again you find a gem. Sometimes even a new gem. Roll 7's Rollerdrome was on sale from launch, and what immediately caught my eye was its vibrant cel-shaded art style. The visuals pop, and its use of color is fantastic. What I wasn't expecting was a brief but insanely fun game that blends two different styles of game together satisfyingly well. It's one part Rollerblade extreme sport game with Tony Hawk style objectives you need to complete in each stage, one part third-person shooter set in a dystopian future trying to survive a Running Man style sport as Kara Hassan. The game is rooted in a simple gameplay loop, but one that I couldn't stop completing due to how well it harmonizes those two styles of game. The music is choice, the level design is great, and each stage uses the art style well. What bits of world building the game does showcase enhanced my investment to keep me going as well. This was just a delightful surprise that I can't recommend enough for someone who wants a fresh spin on a game genre that already doesn't have much real estate in gaming nowadays. Easily my indie game of the year. Not only did I turn 30 last year, but so did Kirby, 12 days after me in fact, and Hal had a pretty solid celebration of this god-killing embodiment of the peak physical form, including but not limited to his anime getting announced for a physical release, okay, finally, and one of his finest outings ever in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, a game that finally sees him actually going off on a full 3D adventure featuring a bevy of powers and a whole new world that gives this beloved character a fresh environment to make his mark within. Everything I love in a great Kirby game translates well as far as giving you a breezy time with fun quirks within each level and a myriad of small side challenges, along with having some fun boss battles, and in true Kirby tradition, a batshit finale, the likes of which I'd compare to Bayonetta or Devil May Cry. The level design is great, and I was happy to see such a great experience come out of this. It had me delighted from second one, but the progression you make across these worlds kept me coming back. A fitting celebration for such an iconic character. When you spend so much time deconstructing the minutia of a flawed product, it can really give you this sense of jaded cynicism. See the multitude of problems and shade thrown at Pokemon Sword and Shield by myself and the Wednesday Boys. With the release of Pokemon Legends Arceus at the beginning of the year, though, I was pleasantly surprised at how fun, neat, and fresh a Pokemon game felt. It wasn't my favorite game in the series, but it was a dope twist on the familiar. It gave me hope that maybe they wouldn't fuck it up next time. Then, they announced Scarlet and Violet, and upon release gave me the Pokemon experience I tried to express desire for in my criticisms of Sword and Shield initially. I know people are throwing loads of valid criticism at the game, but let me just throw some shade elsewhere for a second. You guys stand this king? This was your game of the year? I'm not going to deny these games have some bizarre problems, some of which are more than likely stemming from the hardware they're on. But this game is that fun, guys. The gym challenges are better, or at least more integrated to the themes of the gym in question more consistently. The sheer scale of the journey at hand was equally as fresh as some of the ideas within Arceus, while being more like a traditional Pokemon game. These are the expansions I was hoping to see. The variety of Pokemon in the game is great, the new stuff is also dope, and the world is fun to explore. I'm so glad I had the journey I had with this game, the order in which I did things, and how it incentivizes experimenting in a way I think they've always hoped players would. Easily the most fun I've had in a mainline game in about a decade, and it deserves the number 3 spot in my opinion. I recently made a list on Twitter of 10 things I did on the internet last year that were my favorite, and while I literally just threw shade at Elden Ring, it really is that good. A huge world full of surprise, challenge, and deep mystery. As gorgeous as it is abstract, the world of Elden Ring has been a delight to explore and comb through on my own accidentally obtuse fashion. Similarly to my number 2 album of the year, ironically enough, this game gave me some of my favorite moments I experienced in the medium in 2022, between clutch wins against bosses, falling into a few of the game's traps, and being deep inside the grind. From Software really pulled off a game in this style with this scale pretty fantastically. It looks incredible on top of that. The enemy design and backdrops you explore are absolutely gorgeous. It feels like one living, breathing entity, with all the community love to enrich the experience. The biggest thing I think holding it back for me from the top spot is that because of its size and scale, I would have loved maybe a little less obtuseness. In a world like this, I felt discouraged when I finally bit the bullet and dissected myself from the immersion. Everyone I talked to about this game said it was impossible to actually play it without looking at least something up, and honestly, they're right. These games have their own language and a way of presenting things, which in a less open environment is where you could say the magic lays. But in a game like this, I think reining that aspect in at least a bit could have helped it. I know that's a big, strange complaint, but it's my sole, huge, outlier nitpick I could think to present to a game this good. You know, even though I usually keep at least one Pokemon game in my rotation steadily, the rest of the RPG genre doesn't always find itself in the same position. When I find an RPG I love, though, it gets its hooks in me deep. And Triangle Strategy absolutely was an obsession of mine. It's a game that pushes you deep into the kingdom of Norzelia quickly, gives you a wealth of insight to the hierarchy amidst the beginnings of political corruption and religious zealots doing their best to keep their power thriving. I really enjoyed following the adventures of Serenoa, Roland, Frederica, and the entire House Wolfhort party. The tactical style combat gave me the same excitement I felt giving this suspend for the first time, with more panache in the pot to give it a deeper playthrough, and the branching path story actually felt well integrated as well, even if some of my late game decisions led to consequences I wish never happened. It gives me hope that I can fix the mistakes I made the first time around in a future playthrough, or at least find different explorations to reach a different resolution as a whole. It makes me wonder how diverse your journey can be and where you'll end up once things hit the fan. It's a story of grand theatrics and mechanics that work so well. It's a game I loved so much, I couldn't help but make it my game of the year for 2022.
And that was my list. Did you like it? Did you not? Let me know what you thought about it, along with some of your favorite games in the comments down below. If you did like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdery content, be sure to subscribe. Thank you again so very much for watching. I'm hoping to make 2023 another huge year. Hopefully you're excited for List Week. Thank you again so very much for watching. I've been Viral Rack. You guys are getting insights and situations. And I'll see you another day.